I'm going to be really quick as well. So I'm here to give you a brief background and update on the Mallee Emu-wren translocation that is going ahead very soon. So before I go into the translocation, how we got to this point in our project was we need to go back in early 2014. I'm sure most people in this room, or at least have anything to do with the Mallee, know how devastating the fires were in that year, not just for Mallee emu-wrens, but many threatened, not even threatened, but just Mallee birds in general. We lost a lot of habitat in South Australia and Victoria. And it was these South Australian fires where we lost the last two known populations of the Mallee emu-wren, from Billiat and Ngarkat. So these fires led to a very large group of people from many organisations getting together. So this is essentially my acknowledgement slides with everyone that's involved with our translocation. I'm just the person up here giving the talk, but there's lots of people that could be up here giving the talk today, but a lot of them are actually in the field at the minute. And so it's hard to convey how much work we've had to do since those fires in early 2014 to get a translocation up and running. If you're here for Brett's talk, a lot of that work that he talked about, which I won't touch on in 6 minutes, we've also had to do as well. So from our Threatened Mallee Birds Conservation Action Plan, emu-wrens were obviously our priority species. And one of our objectives after the fires, you can see Billiat and Ngarkat populations, how vulnerable this species now is. We've got one population in Hattah and one in western Murray Sunset, with a few scattered throughout the rest of Murray Sunset. But our objective was to try and reduce this risk of a species that lives in a very flammable environment. So to do this, we started investigating the possibility of doing translocations. So again, huge collaborative effort. We were lucky enough to get some seed funding that kicked off a few projects for us, looking at release and source sites. And at the same time, we started working with a group of Rotarians from Murray Bridge, which you can see in these photos. They've come and they cater for us on our big survey trips, which is really neat. Here's some of the guys building aviaries out at Monarto Zoo for emu-wrens. And so while this was all going on, we went out to Weiperfeld to look at it as a potential release site for emu-wrens, because they have only been seen in there 3 times since '99. But when we started doing targeted surveys, we actually found 24 groups of emu-wrens down in there with the help of the Rotarians. And so all of a sudden our release site was not going to be our release site. But we did find another emu-wren population. It's quite small, but they are still there in Weiperfeld. At the same time we were looking at release and source sites, we started working with the rufous-crowned emu-wrens up near Alice Springs. These guys are even smaller than Mallee emu-wrens, they're about 4 to 5 grams. And so we're working with Desert Park up there. And so we've used these birds to practice our catching techniques. We have custom-made mist nets that are three layers of mist nets joined together just in a basic wall. And we have these special-made throw nets that we cover triodia to catch birds. It's very time-consuming and difficult. And they still go straight through the mist nets. And these are the boxes that Zoos SA have designed for transporting. They have their live food in there with them. When the birds were moved down to Monarto, we have 3 pairs out there. We use these to trial some marking techniques, because unfortunately they're not big enough to radio track. So once we release them, we can't radio track them. And there's also concerns about banding a bird like this that is so small and lives in such dense vegetation. So we had to come up with sort of a novel way of trying to mark them, and they were difficult. And our best method for keeping something on them turned out to be nail polish on the tips of their tails. So two different colour, and that's what we'll be using in the field. So while all this was going on, we got threatened species recovery funding to run our first phase of the translocation, which again has been a huge collaborative effort, and we couldn't have done without all of our in-kind contributions that have been involved with this project. And I can't really go into much detail about our first phase of our translocation, but essentially we're aiming to try and work out if translocations are a suitable conservation tool for this species to reintroduce populations to spread their risk. Does that just stop, or I've got 1 minute? Anyway, a minute, okay. So we've got our design is quite adaptive, so we're trying to aim to test a few things that might affect establishment success and how we might be able to measure the success. So we have immediate and delayed releases. So delayed releases, we're holding the birds for 24 hours before we let them go. Groups that we're catching them together, releasing them together, and then others where we'll just take a few individuals from spots and let them go together. We're doing them in April and August. We're not sure which is going to end up being a better time to be able to catch these birds. And then we're looking at our marking techniques. I guess I probably should point out that we've got about 6,000 to 8,000 birds left in those Victorian populations, and they're doing quite well. They've had a few good seasons over there. So the guys that are out there have just found a couple of hundred in the last week. So it's a good time to be doing a translocation of this species, essentially. And there you go. I've got time.